always the guy to remind me to record this. Thank you. I almost forgot again. Thanks, Robert. This is the fourth Tequila Tuesday that we've done. What I try to do with these fun little happy hours is incorporate real life training into being a part of the Patreon community that I'm trying to build. We've had lots of different subjects, and one of these times I'm going to deliver sales training myself or two as well. But one of the things that I always did when I built sales teams is bring in people who are experts in other disciplines to just help us be better, well-rounded people. Now, one of the areas that salespeople historically suck is financial literacy. And I kind of wrote about this today, some advice that I got back in the day, which like salespeople, the best salespeople should go into like a little bit of debt all the time. And I remember hating that kind of advice. And I've seen so many salespeople and VPs and managers and everything, just blow through money, make tons of mistakes, and stress themselves out, and just have this anxiety all the time about having to, make a certain amount of money to, keep up with your lifestyle. And I've been kind of raging against that for quite a while now. And so I decided to reach out to my buddy, HenryFrazier, who works for New York Life. He's an expert in financial planning, wealth management, insurance, all of these kind of things. Henry's one of my best friends on the planet. I told my kids earlier today that I was doing this, and they were like, I miss Uncle Henry. And my 12-year-old was like, yeah, I really miss wrestling with Uncle Henry, kicking his butt, So Henry and I have been real good friends for almost 20 years now. Henry's a D1 college football player, has an Arena League championship ring. And fun fact, he and I worked together at the first startup that I ever worked at, this company called Reply. And so he can verify that I was decent as a salesperson. And then I got moved into sales management role, and Henry was one of my sales reps. And as a sales rep, Henry smashed all of the records that I had created. Henry's one of the guys that got into surfing with me. And he's since left technology after a stint at Oracle and building out a sales org at some other place, and got into this world that he's in now, and does really well for himself, serves a bunch of different communities in San Francisco Bay Area. So excited to have you here, buddy, and talk to this group of folks, and gonna get out of the way and turn it over to you. I'll pay attention to the chat box here and take people off mute if there's some good questions, and everybody welcome Henry, and be free flowing with your questions. Try to make it as interactive as we can, and hopefully it'll be helpful for you guys. All right, you got it, Henry.
Yeah, so sounds like a plan. And although this is going to be kind of like a presentation, there's definitely going to be some slides. Let's try to keep it as loose as possible. And if you guys have any questions, or if I'm going over something too fast and need to go over it again, let me know. Like Scott said, not so fun fact for me, every place that we've worked together, he's kicked my ass at some point. And then he's moved on to the next stage, and then he's made room for me to become the salesperson of the year or whatever it may be. But yeah, I've known this man for a while. I love you, Scott. Appreciate you. And let's go ahead and get into this thing. So let me go ahead and share my screen. And sorry about this, guys. Just have to find the presentation. We literally just had it up. So bear with me for 1 second. All right.
Luckily, we rehearsed this like 5 minutes before everybody got on.
Exactly. Once we get into it, it's going to be a little bit better. So everybody can see the screen. We're good now, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So yeah, so this presentation is called Finding Financial Balance. It's pretty general. It's not going to be specific to the company that I represent. It's not going to be specific to any one piece of a financial solution or any one tool. So all of you guys can take this information, do with it as you may. Everyone that is here, however, is entitled to a 1-hour personal consultation for free if that's something that you do want to take advantage of, we'll hand out my contact information at the end of this presentation for anybody that needs any further assistance. Just a quick disclaimer, this is not going to be anything specific. So we're not going to talk about specific investment advice to your particular situation. I'm not a tax professional, so we will go over some tax strategies, but all of those type of specific advice, you want to go to your specific advisor, so that way we can tailor it to your specific situation. So the agenda for today, so we're going to go over what's called a financial EKG. This is pretty cool. It's just going to let us know how to determine what's that number that we need to retire, and then also how much should we be saving every year if we want to go ahead and retire properly. I'll go over what's called the financial foundation. So if we think of building this big wealth that we're all trying to put together, it starts with that foundation, and we'll go into what those pieces look like. And then we'll finish with the macro asset perspective, which is a wealth accumulation and income accumulation strategy. So as I mentioned along the way, if there's any questions, Scott, please go ahead and interrupt me, let me know, and that way we can pause and answer people's questions as they come up. There was a workbook that was emailed out. I'm not sure if you guys got the workbook, but if you did, you should be able to copy along and take some notes. If not, feel free to take notes on a regular piece of paper as you guys normally do. But the financial EKG, we came up with the idea of calling it an EKG because it was first developed by a bunch of doctors here in the Silicon Valley area, and they were starting to think about, how much are we putting away? Are we putting away enough? Should everything go into our 401k? And obviously people can look at an EKG and tell us the condition of our hearts. We look at the EKG to tell you the condition of your money. So when we're looking at this life as we move forward and as we're trying to accumulate wealth, we break everything into two phases. There's the accumulation stage, which starts from the moment you guys are working. It's going to end whenever you decide to retire, whether it's 60, whether it's 55, whether it's 65. What's that age where you want to retire? Not that you're going to stop working at that age, but at some point, if we are working, it should be just because I want to work and not because I have to work. Once I retire, we hit that conservation phase where now all of the assets that we've worked really hard to accumulate, we need to be able to pay ourselves an income that hopefully we never outlive. So during this accumulation phase, we divide it into two because obviously there's two ways we can make money. One is people making money. The second way we can make money is our money making money. And usually when we first start working, we don't really know too much about finances. We don't have a lot of assets. Some of us aren't even putting money in our 401ks when we first start working. So the money that we build is all us at work. Maybe we have money going to a savings account. Maybe we have money going under our mattress or in a shoebox, but either way, it grows because we're the ones working hard to put money into this situation. But ideally, by the time we hit our retirement age, we want to make sure that the money that we're putting away, let me go ahead and get this part right here. Bear with me for 1 second. Once we get to this retirement age, we want to make sure that the money that we're putting away can work for us. And that way we're not having to work for ourselves. And just bear with me, my mouse froze up a little bit, guys. Okay, so we want to make sure that when we retire, our money can work for us and we're not having to put the income out or put the sweat equity out to give us the income that we like. By the time we're halfway to retirement, we want to be able to say that half of the income that I want in retirement can come from my money at work. But the problem is a lot of people don't really think about saving for retirement until they get into their mid 30s, mid 40s. Sometimes I even see people in their mid 50s. And what happens, the longer we wait to start saving, the steeper that line needs to be to get us to the income that we want at retirement. And for some people that wait too long, that line becomes very steep. And in order to retire at the same age, the amount of money that I would need to save every single month just becomes impossible. And then you see people starting to save at a regular rate, but then your retirement age just keeps pushing out further and further into the future. And a lot of people think that by the time we retire in the next couple decades, the average retirement age is going to be 70, 75, or even longer. And I don't want to work until 75. I'm pretty sure people that are on this call probably don't want to work until 75 either. So what we're going to do is we're going to look at an example of a 40-year-old who wants to retire at the age of 65. So this means that this person has about 25 years to accomplish their goal. And we're going to say that today, this person makes $80,000 a year in current annual income. Now, for someone that makes $80,000 a year in annual income, we got to think, what do we want to retire off of? And that's one of the questions that you guys can start asking yourself. When you reach that retirement age of 55, 60, 65, do you want to be living on more than you're making today? Or do you want to be living on less than you're making today? If you're under 30, you've probably never really thought of that question. And what you want to think about is the lifestyle that you want to live. What type of vacations do you want to take? What type of gifts do you want to give to your grandchildren and family and so forth? But you'll be surprised, a lot of people say, I don't need as much as I make now. I can live on less than what I make in retirement and be perfectly fine. I'm not going to be buying the new suits. I'm not going to be buying the new clothes, the new cars, these type of things. I can just live on less. So for this example, we're going to use someone that's making $80,000 a year today, but wants to make $60,000 a year in retirement. So what we want to think about is, what can we get, or what can we anticipate as we're accumulating, as we're putting money in our 401ks, as we're buying mutual funds, as we're investing in the stock market, what can we expect on average? And for this example, we're going to use an average of 8%, which is pretty aggressive in the short term if everyone's looking at what's going on in the world today. And during the conservation phase, we're going to reduce it down to 5%, meaning that if I'm investing as a 50-year-old or as a 60-year-old or as a 70-year-old, most likely I'm not going to be as aggressive. So the tools that I choose to put my money into are going to be producing less interest. Do you have any questions so far, Scott? Are we good to go?
We're good to go. There's a couple people who agree with you that 8% is super aggressive, 5% is more normal, but
8% is definitely aggressive.
Doesn't matter. It's just an example.
Yeah, it's just an example, but we can run this at whatever rate you guys want to play with, whether it's 7%, 6%. But we need to figure that out, because we need to figure out how much money I need to accumulate in order to retire. If I take $60,000 a year and I divide that by 0.05, I'm going to get 1.2 million. If you take your number that you're thinking of, if you say, hey, I want to live on 150,000 a year, or I want to live on $200,000 a year, divide it by the rate that you think you would get, 0.04, which is 4%, and it will tell you how much you need to accumulate in order to retire. We would like to be able to accumulate enough assets just to live on the interest that it kicks out. And the reason we want to do that is because inflation goes up at 3% every single year. For those of you that are not sure what inflation is, it's basically the cost. It's basically the cost of goods. So if you think about it and you ask, hey, grandma, grandpa, how much was a cup of coffee when you guys were younger? How much was a bottle of tequila when you were 20 or 30? You're going to get a lot different numbers than today, right? So if inflation goes up at 3%, we know that as we get older, things are going to cost more. Our money's not going to go as far. So there's something called the rule of 72. The rule of 72 will tell you how many years it takes your money to double. For instance, if I have $100,000 that I want to put into the bank, and the bank says, Henry, we're going to give you 10% per year on your money. I can take 10%, divide that into 72, that's 7.2. That means in 7.2 years, my $100,000 is going to double to 200,000 if I'm earning 10% every year. So we can use the same math when calculating inflation. If inflation goes up at 3% per year, in this instance, I think we're using 4% per year, you can see that every 18 years, my money is going to buy half of what I used to buy, or of what it used to buy. So if I retire at 65, 18 years into the future, if I want to live on $60,000 a year, that $60,000 a year is only going to spend as $30,000 a year. So as I'm living on the interest, if I have a bag of money that's worth $1.2 million, it's kicking out 5% interest. I have it invested in vehicles that I'm earning 5% every year. So the money that I'm earning is $60,000 a year just in interest, which happens to be the money that I want to live on. If I'm using just the interest and I'm not touching that bag of money, theoretically, that money can last forever. That bag of money is just going to sit there kicking out interest. But as inflation goes up, as things start to cost more money, I'm going to have to dip into that bag to pull out more money for it to feel like I'm still living on $60,000 a year. If you made $100,000 a year back in the 30s and 40s, you're sitting kind of pretty. If you're at $100,000 a year today, you still have some planning to do, right? So as we get older into the future, eventually I'm going to have to pull out $120,000 a year just for it to feel like $60,000 a year. Now, this bag of money that I have that was just sitting there is starting to get smaller because now I'm having to dip into it for my lifestyle. So as that bag of money gets smaller and smaller and smaller, it starts kicking out less interest, right? The bag of money is not going to last forever. So now we have a downward spiral happening. And this is called inflation erosion, to the point to where by the time I hit life expectancy at age 95, ideally, I ran out of money at that point. The problem is none of us know how long we're going to live. There's actually a book called Die Broke where he says, you know what? I want to go ahead and spend all the money that I've accumulated. I don't want to pass anything behind. Matter of fact, when I die, I want the check to the mortuary to bounce. That's like exact perfect planning, right? And he said it tongue in cheek. He was talking about some other things, but this is what we're talking about because you got to think about it. There's not a lot of companies paying pensions anymore. Social Security today, you may get $30,000 a year from Social Security, but what's Social Security going to pay in 10, 15, 20 years? I saw a hand go up, Scott.
No. That was applause for this amazing quote of, when I die, I want my last check to bounce, or something like that.
Exactly.
You got, that was me applauding, and there was probably 4 or 5 other people who were on that one.
Yeah. So we got to start thinking about this, guys, because by the time we hit our 60s and we don't have a pension and Social Security is barely paying us anything, we got to think about where is this money going to come from? And it's not like we can rewind. It's not like we can get to 65 and say, you know what, let's go ahead and try that all over again. I wish I wouldn't have bought that boat at that time. I wish I wouldn't have bought that jet ski or all these different types of things before putting some money away, right? So this person at age 40, he wants to retire at 65. He needs to accumulate $1.2 million of assets. And let's say this person has not done anything. He's 40 years old, he has no assets, no 401k, no nothing. He's starting at zero. For this person, it would take $1,367 per month, growing at 8% to get to $1.2 million. Now, let's say this person said, you know what? I'm going to start saving 5 years earlier. So instead of waiting until I'm 40, let's start at 35. Let's give myself 5 more years to accumulate that wealth. Now, instead of having to put away $1,367 per month, all I need to put away is $882 per month. Where if you do the math, if I'm making $80,000 per year, that's roughly 10% of my money that I'm saving. Our parents and our grandparents came up with that rule of, for every dollar you make, put away a dime. Figure out how to live on 90% of your income. And that's when their life expectancy wasn't even 75. That's when they took more Social Security out than they actually put in. That's when 35% of Fortune 100 companies paid a pension. Now we have the opposite situation. Not a lot of pensions, not a lot of Social Security. We're living to age 100. So if you are in the situation where you don't have a pension and you have a long life expectancy, you guys are taking care of yourselves and working out and doing all this stuff, you're going to want to try to figure out how can you put away close to 20% of what you make, 30, 40%. You don't want to stick to the 10% rule. It's going to leave you short. So if I don't have 5 years, let's say the person said, you know, I went to this presentation. I listened to everything. I know it's important to save, but you know what? I'm not saving yet. I'm gonna wait. I'm gonna wait until I'm 45 years old. Now, this person has to put away $2,185 a month just to get to the same number. The earlier you start, the better. A 30-year-old, $523 a month. That's a car payment, right? A 25-year-old, $344 a month. Put away $344 a month as a 25-year-old, you'll be a millionaire by the time you retire, right? So this is obviously an example. All of you guys have your own particular numbers. If you want to try to figure out your own numbers, how much you need to save to get to your number, let me know and we'll go ahead and work on that with you. Before we go to the next part, I want to take any questions on this part, the EKG. We good to go? All right.
I don't see anybody chiming in yet.
All right. So we'll go through the financial foundation. If we look at our foundation similar to building a home, you know, our building wealth, you know, building these nice lifestyles, it's kind of like building a nice mansion, a really nice home. And you're not going to build a really nice home without starting with the foundation. It's important that we have these foundational blocks in place. You know, these are your risk management tools, and they're important. Health insurance is important. Long-term care insurance is also important. And a lot of people think that health insurance will cover long-term care insurance. Long-term care insurance is those activities that we do on a daily basis. You know, we eat by ourselves, we get in and out of the bathtub by ourselves, we use the bathroom by ourselves. At some point, if we have a stroke or if we get older and we have Alzheimer's or dementia or some of these things happen, we're not going to be able to do that ourselves. And the moment we need help with 2 out of 6 activities that we do on a daily basis, we need long-term care. Medicare doesn't cover it. Medicaid will cover it, but you have to spend down all your assets to where you barely have anything, and you can only go to a facility that takes Medicaid. So long-term care is one of those things that you want to start thinking about, especially for women, because women outlive us men. And typically, when your husband has passed away, the woman is still alive and sometimes needs care. And if we don't want to be a burden on our kids, we want to start putting these tools in place. A lot of you guys live in different areas across America. Out here in California, it's about $3,000 a month to start for someone to come to your home and take care of you. It's anywhere from $5,000 to $6,000 a month if you want to live in an assisted living facility. And if you want to live in a nursing home, we're looking at $150,000 a year or more. So if you don't have a plan for long-term care, your plan is going to be one of the assets that you're working hard to accumulate. Having an emergency savings is key. At least 6 months of living expenses in a savings account. Calculate your basic living expenses. How much is rent or mortgage? How much do you spend on groceries every month? How much does it cost to keep the Wi-Fi going or property taxes? All those basic living expenses that you need to survive, multiply it by 6, put it in a savings account. With what we have going on, it may not be a bad idea to have a year in a savings account to where I just have full liquidity. I have access to my money in case something happens, when it does typically. Debt management is important, having our credit under control. There's bad debt, there's not so bad debt, there's horrible debt, right? We don't want to borrow a lot of money on a credit card to go to Scott Surf and Sales event. Sorry, Scott, we want to go ahead and pay for that with cash.
Whoa.
We don't want to borrow, we don't want to put vacations on a credit card, right? But you know, we want to keep our debt under control. Having wills and trusts are very important, especially for business owners out there, especially as you start to accumulate wealth, especially if you have children, especially if you have children from different marriages, especially if you own property in different states. You want to get this trust and everything in place, and you'll need to talk to an estate attorney to do so. Auto insurance, homeowners insurance, these are your property and casualty insurances. Umbrella insurance policies are things you may need when you live in an expensive area and there's a lot of liability around someone getting hurt on your property or by one of your vehicles. A lot of us are into giving money to charities, and there's some instances where we may want to continue to give charities whether we're alive or dead. You know, this is where a lot of endowments and scholarship funds come into place, and you can set those up while you're still living and while you're accumulating wealth. The last two, along with long-term care, protect our ability to earn an income. A lot of times we start a new company and we don't look at our benefits. We look at our 401k, but we don't really ask, is there a match, and what is the match? We don't really ask, hey, can I add money to the pre-tax side if I wanted to? Or is it only or can I add money to the after-tax side if I wanted to? Or can I only add money to the pre-tax side of my 401k? We don't look at our dental and our health and these type of things. A lot of us really don't look at our disability insurance. And a lot of companies will provide you with disability insurance. There's short-term disability, which usually covers anywhere from like 3 months, sometimes up to a year. And then there's also long-term disability. So when you look at your benefits and you say, if I become disabled, I'm pretty sure there's people on this call, or people on this call have known somebody that has been disabled for 6 months or more. It could put a dent in your ability to accumulate wealth. And when you look at your own benefits, a lot of companies, if you do get disability insurance, it will cover about 60 to 70% of your income. So what you want to do is do the math. Again, let's say you're used to making $10,000 per month. Let's say you have basic living expenses of like $6,000 per month. If you get in a car accident or you become disabled and you can't go to work, and now your $10,000 a month gets cut down to 60%, which is $6,000 a month, because your employer is paying for it, it's also taxable. So you're not going to take home $6,000, you're going to take home $5,000, $4,000, $4,500. So you want to do the math, figure out your budget, figure out what do I need to continue to get by, what do I want? In that case, regardless of whether I'm healthy or not, if I become disabled and I'm used to getting $10,000 a month, I can still get the $10,000 a month because I have my disability insurance from work. And if that's not giving me enough income, I will buy my own disability insurance to supplement the money that I'm missing. And that way I can continue to accumulate wealth regardless of whether I'm able to work or not. Life insurance is one of those important things. Long-term care, disability insurance, life insurance, all of these things are the only things that you have to buy with your health. Life insurance is a protection piece, and most people are underinsured. If all you have is insurance that you get from work, you might want to look at owning your own insurance policy, because when you lose your job, you're going to lose your income. Quick calculation on how to figure out how much life insurance you need. Everybody can do this. There's something called a human life value. So let's say I'm 35 years old and I make $50,000 a year. How much life insurance should I have? If I were to pass away, if I had a wrongful death, someone hit me I got ran over by a boat, I was wakeboarding and I fell and the boat hit me and I got ran over. Somebody can sue. There's gonna be a wrongful death suit happening. And my fiance may say, hey, Henry, you know, I'm suing this company, and they're gonna say, how much are you gonna sue me for? And they're gonna say, well, my husband made $50,000 a year. He's only 35 years old. Even if he never gets another raise and works until he's 65, that's 30 years of income that I'm missing. 30 years times 50,000 is $1.5 million that this person needs. That's his human life value. Usually you don't need your full human life value. Usually we tie it to the kids. So what I see often is a 35-year-old that's making $50,000 a year that has a 3-year-old that he's concerned, if I don't make it home tomorrow, what happens to the lifestyle that I've created for my family? Who pays the mortgage? How do these kids keep going to the same school? All of that type of stuff. So we ask, how long do you need that income replacement? Let's say I need that replacement to happen at least until my 3-year-old turns 18. That's 15 more years. $50,000 a year times 15 years, you need a $750,000 life insurance policy. Do the math, figure out how much life insurance you need, put it in place. Lock in your health while you can.
Hey, Henry, right. there's a question here from Nick. Nick, if you're there and you could take yourself off mute, go ahead and ask your question.
Yeah, no, I'm good. I didn't want to interrupt you there, Henry. So just, I mean, I know you're kind of going through a lot of stuff right now. What are you seeing from like a, diversification, right? With, the stock market where it is, it's up but from an inflation standpoint, I mean, obviously it's there. Are you looking at and you seeing a lot of precious metals, looking at gold, silver, and so on as well?
Yeah, so we're going to get into diversification
right.
on this next part, but it's a good question. We're heading into a pretty hefty recession, and a lot of people think that we're going to bounce back pretty quickly. I don't agree. I'm also not a stock broker, so I don't study stocks every single day, but I can tell you that if you can get into metals, silver is looking really good right now. If you're trying to invest for the short term, a lot of people are looking to buy real estate within the next 12 to 18 months because of everything that's happening in America.
Right.
I would be hesitant to put that in the stock market. If you're looking at the short term, you might want to look at muni bonds. Muni bonds might be a good place to put your money for the short term if you're looking like 12 to 18 months. If you're younger and you have a long holding period, stock market isn't bad. I think everything is inflated right now. But if you have a systematic approach to where you're constantly just buying in, whether it's through your 401k, whether it's through mutual funds that you own, I don't think it's a bad idea. I think people that have a long time horizon have a different story than someone that is 50 or 55 and can't withstand to make it through this recession that we're about to hit.
We got another question here, Henry, from Jacqueline. Jacqueline, are you there?
Yep, I'm here. So I just started a new job and I had to sign off on my 401k today, and they match up to 6%. I don't know what that means. Like, I don't know if that's good. I don't know if that's bad.
So that is really good. I deal with people that have 401k matches all the time. You rarely see anything over 6%. And typically when you do see 6%, it's usually will match 50% up to 6%, which means that if you put 6% of your income in, they'll put half of that. They'll put 3%. But if you have a full 6% match, what they're saying is, if you put in 6% of your income, so if I make $100,000 a year and I put away $6,000 per year, my company is also going to put in $6,000 a year. You don't get paid less. That's free money. And I would at least put in the amount that you can get all of the match. If you have a 3% match, at least put in 3%. If you have a 6% match, at least put in 6%.
Okay, because it says your employer matches the first 6% of your compensation. You'll receive a 50% match for the contributions up to 6%. So so
that means they're going to match 3 if you put in 6. So if you make 100,000 and you put in $6,000 for the year, which is 6% of your income, they're going to put in 3,000, which is 3% of your income. If you decide to put in 4% of your income, then they're going to put in 2%. So you're going to put in 4,000 and they're going to put in 2,000.
When do you vest though? Oh, sorry, Henry.
Some companies don't have a vesting schedule.
Yeah.
So some companies, that money is yours immediately. Other companies have a 5-year vesting period or whatever. But if you have a company that's giving a match, it's a great opportunity. It's free money. And a lot of companies are peeling back those benefits, especially now with COVID and companies really struggling. So if you have a company that is giving you a 6% match, that's free money. Take it.
Okay. And then my next question was, I'm obsessed with Ally Bank. I just find their returns to be amazing. And I just wanted to know, in this sort of climate, do you recommend, investing in a CD over, like, is in such a shaky environment, is a CD like the most stable, safe return that you can get, if in terms of putting your money into a bank or into a CD?
Yeah, so there's a lot of safe options, right? There's CDs, money market accounts, regular bank savings account. I like Ally savings account as well. I mean, any savings account that's online and kind of away from you a little bit helps you save a little bit more because you don't have quick access to it. But there's also muni bonds. There's also other type of corporate bonds and floating rate bonds and life insurance and other type of vehicles that you can put your money into that are safe which we'll get into. It just really depends upon your purpose for putting this money away, your need for liquidity, also your risk tolerance, right? And what you're saving for, like what's your goals, right? So there's no like set answer because each person's situation is different, right? But I think that you should at least have 6 months of living expenses in some type of an account like that you have access to immediately. And if you're looking to buy a home, which a lot of people are, you know, you may even want more money in that account just waiting there so that way you can use it to make a purchase.
All right, go for it. Go for it, Henry. Keep going.
All right. So this last part is called the macro asset perspective. And like I mentioned, it was developed over 25 years ago. And people just started asking all these questions like, you know, I've decided that I should put away 20% of my income, but where should I put it? There's these mutual funds and there's these CDs and 401ks, and I got this match and I don't have this match. And like, what do I do, right? So they came up with this macro asset perspective to give us a visual picture of where we should put our money. And this particular part has 6 different steps. So I'll take a little bit of a break in between each step just in case people have questions. But the first step is pretty basic, and we're talking about vertical diversification. And this is, how do we decide, do we put our money in a safe vehicle? Do we put our money into a moderate vehicle? Or is it best to put our money into an aggressive vehicle? How do we decide how much to put aggressive versus how much to put safe? And regardless of who you talk to, whether it's parents, grandparents, friends, people are going to tell you that you should diversify in this manner somehow. Not everything should go aggressive. Not everything should go safe. We got to figure out some way in between. Everything that we put above this line, which will be considered aggressive, is considered a paper asset. It's not real wealth. Your money moves up and down in the stock market. It isn't real until we actually sell it. It's called paper assets. All of our real wealth is found below the line, where we have accounts, where we have vehicles that earn interest, earn interest, earn dividends, and they typically grow in generally one direction. Wall Street suggests that when we're trying to decide how much money to put away, we should put a percentage of our savings below the line that's equal to our age. So a 20-year-old, 20% of what I'm putting away should go into a safe investment. If I'm making $100,000 a year and I'm putting away 10% of what I make, that's $10,000 a year, 2,000 of it should go into a safe place, 8,000 of it should go into an aggressive place. This isn't like a rule that everyone has to follow. It's just kind of like a guideline, but it'll help you determine what should my risk tolerance be. When I hear risk tolerance, when I hear 80-20, 70-30, 50-50, people are always saying these things. What the hell does it mean? This is what they're talking about. Now, if I'm an 80-year-old, am I going to put 80% of what I have in the stock market? Nah, it's going to be completely the opposite. 20% of what I have is going to go into the stock market. 80% is going to go into a safe. I'm 80. I don't have time for the market to crash and for it to recover again. So I'm not as risky as when I was young. So vertical diversification is good when it comes to managing risk, but the purpose of it is taking our paper assets and turning it into real wealth over time, moving our money down below the line as we become older. We go from 80-20 to 70-30 to 60-40 to 50-50 and so forth, right? Now, horizontal diversification has become even more important in some instances. And that's having to decide, do I put my money on the pre-tax side of the fence, or do I put my money on the after-tax side of the fence? So before we dive into this piece, are there any questions about the vertical diversification part? Okay, I think we're still good to go. So we got to consider pre-tax versus after-tax. This is very important, just as important as vertical diversification. Pre-tax investments, these are your 401ks in most instances. A lot of companies today are offering after-tax 401ks, which are beautiful for a lot of reasons, which I'll get into. But Pre-tax generally is going to be your 401k, traditional IRAs. You also have SEP IRAs, simple IRAs for business owners. And then you also have your pension, which is a taxable income. These are all pre-tax investments. And pre-tax investments mean that when I put my money in, my money goes in before taxes come out. And when I go to take the money out, I pay taxes at that point. That's why they're called pre-tax investments. These vehicles, like your 401k, IRAs, they became popular back in the 80s. And in the 80s, the top tax bracket, and does anyone want to guess, Scott, what the top tax bracket was? You guys want to type some stuff into the chat box? What do you think?
You're talking about in the 80s?
In the 80s. What percentage of your paycheck? So right now, most of us are in the 22 to 35% tax bracket, meaning that 35% of your paycheck is coming out and going straight to the federal government. In the 80s, what percentage of your paycheck do you think you had to give away to the government? What are we getting, Scott, in the chat box?
There's a 60, 40, 45, 62 and a half, 50,
Okay.
10. Nicole says
pretty
10.
good. 10. All right.
I'm moving.
So
2, Andre McBride, 2. Really? I'm moving wherever whatever fucking planet Andre is on, that's where I'm moving.
All right, Andre in Costa Rica. So the top tax bracket in the 80s was 70%. Can you believe that? 70% of your money going to the federal government. That's why they came up with the 401k in the first place. Like, I'm not giving the government 70% of my damn money. You crazy?
I guess
What was that, Scott?
I guess 60, and I was 10% off. I guess 60.
Yeah. So if I'm having to give 70% of my paycheck to the federal government, you best believe I'm putting it in a 401k. I'm gonna put my money in the 401k. You're not getting none of these taxes, and I'll take the money out when I retire. Right? If I was in the 80s, there were 15 different tax brackets. If I made a little bit of a raise, I jumped right up into another tax bracket. If I made a little less money, I dropped down to a lower tax bracket, right? Back in those days, if I made $100,000 per year, I was in a 59.6% federal tax bracket on just $100,000 of income. Today, if I go from $100,000 a year to $80,000 a year, how many tax brackets do I move today? And that answer is a big fat 0. I'm in the exact same tax bracket because today there are only 7 tax brackets. The highest tax bracket is 37%. It used to be 39.6%, which is going to go right back to 39.6% within the next year or two. So these people that are living today, we're in a very low tax environment. It isn't like what it used to be in the 80s. And I'm not saying you shouldn't put money into the pre-tax side. We're going to show you how to do that. But what we want to do is start building dollars on both sides of the tax fence. We want to put some money on the pre-tax side. We also want to put some money on the after-tax side. If I am going to put money into a pre-tax vehicle, if I'm going to put money into my 401k and take advantage of that match, and let's say I retire and I want to live on $80,000 a year, so I got to pull that money out of my 401k. Do I pay taxes on that money or do I not pay taxes on that money? The answer is yes. All of that money is 100% taxable income. Now riddle me this. What's the tax racket going to be when you're 50 or when you're 60? For a lot of people, the majority of my wealth is being accumulated in my pre-tax 401k. So let's say I'm Mr. 401k. And I'm like, Scott, you're going to work hard and you're going to give me 10%, 20% of your hard-earned money. I'm going to go ahead and take that percentage and I'm going to put it into a bunch of mutual funds sitting within your 401k, and I'm going to invest it for you. And most likely, you're going to have more money with me than if you did it on your own. And it's most likely true because your company is giving you a match. They're giving you that free money, right? So you're going to say, okay, that's cool. So, Henry, Scott's asking Henry, when I retire at 60, can I get my money? But before that, how much money will I have at 60? And I'm going to say, well, your money's in the stock market. Hopefully we can average 8%, 7, 6. Ideally, you'll have this much, but I can't tell you how much you'll have Because it's in the stock market. I know you understand that, right? And you're going to say, yeah. Okay, but if something happens, I can get my money out along the way. And I'm going to say, yeah, but if you're not 59 and a half yet, you do have to pay a 10% penalty. And you're going to say, all right, I get that. You know, I've been putting my money in Ally savings. You know, all my friends have been working since they were like 18 years old for 10 plus years. But when we look at the balance of our savings account, it doesn't reflect 10 years of savings. And that's because I can dip into that savings account. It's not earning any interest, right? So you're gonna be like, I need that 10% penalty. That's good. I need it. I can't touch this money for retirement. So when I get to 60, now I can get my money. I want 80,000 a year to live on. I want to travel and everything. You're gonna give me the 80,000? And I'm gonna say, yeah, Scott, I'll give you your 80,000. But first, I need to take my cut. And you're gonna say, well, Henry, what's your cut? And I'm gonna say, I don't know. Today I take 24%. What tax bracket are you in? 32. Yeah, I'll take 32%. That's my cut. But maybe when you're 60, I'll take 50. Maybe I'll take 65%. I don't know. You're asking too many questions. Deal? You're going to be like, hold on for a second, right? A lot of people have a tax problem that they don't even know of because all my money is going in this pre-tax vehicle. I'm going to owe money when I get it out. If I retire with $1 million in my 401k, how much is actually there? How much of that is actually mine? Right? So we got to start figuring out how can I keep more of my money, because this is 100% taxable income and we have no idea what the government's going to take. So what we want to do with our pre-tax money, the money that's accumulated in the SEP, the money that's accumulated in the 401k, all that type of stuff, we want to be able to pull out a low income. Let's say I only pull $40,000 a year of the $80,000 that I want to live on. That $40,000 a year is going to get taxed at a lower tax bracket. Today, the $40,000 tax bracket is a 12% tax bracket. I'm not sure what it will be in the future, but usually the low tax brackets usually stay low. Now, we don't have to live on just the $40,000 a year because we have another $40,000 a year that we can pull from the after-tax side. This side, there are vehicles that we can pull our money out completely tax-free. So if I'm pulling this money out tax-free, that's a 0% tax bill on that $40,000. I paid a 12% tax bill on my pre-tax $40,000. That's a post-retirement tax burden of 6%. My job is to lower your tax burden. The reason why we put money in your 401ks and all these savings vehicles is so we can have money when we retire. Not so we can get the deduction, not necessarily, right? So 6% is the tax burden. That's the strategy of how we lower our tax burden. So now, before I go into what to do inside these vehicles, are there any questions up to this point?
Hey, Henry, I feel like people know far less about this, like tax-free after-tax income section than the pre-tax stuff. So what are some of the mechanisms? You said there's all these mechanisms. Like, what are some of the things people can do specifically that people maybe don't know about? You know, people know about the obvious stuff, but like, what are the things people don't know about? A Roth IRA. Everybody knows what a Roth IRA is, guys. Come on. Other stuff, right? Give me some secret shit. All
right, so we're gonna head into that. I'm gonna do the whole after tax side. So hold that question.
You could tell I taught Henry my sales process. I cannot skip him ahead. He holds the line. All right.
I will get to that though. I promise you. We're just give me about 2 more minutes to just cover, because there are a lot of people that are putting money on the pre-tax side, and a lot of business owners that are opening up these SEP IRAs, and because they want to get more deductions. So there's definitely some things that we need to do here, but I will get to that after-tax question. Before I do, if you are going to put your money in your 401k, which I strongly suggest you do, take the free money, put it in your 401k. If you are going to put money in your 401k, no matter how old you are, whether you're 30, 50, 60, keep everything aggressive. Do not put safe investments in your 401k. A safe investment is a bond of some sort. If you haven't paid attention to your 401k and you haven't looked at page 2 of your statement, you don't you're not paying attention to what mutual funds you have choices to invest in. And most likely your company slapped you into a target date fund, like a target date 2040, 2030, 2050, which is okay when you're young, but as you start getting over 30, they're gonna automatically start moving your investments to safe vehicles. We do not want safe vehicles in a 401k. Safety is cool, but we don't need it for the long term. Liquidity, we have our savings account for that. Tax advantages like muni bonds, we don't get tax-free income if I put it in my 401k. It's all taxed according to the rules of the 401k. So we got to put everything aggressive. We got to put everything in equities, everything in the stock market. And the longer you have to invest, the better chances you have of beating the stock market. So keep everything aggressive. When I put my money into safe vehicles, they're going to grow at a safe rate, 3, 4, 5% maybe. And when I go to pull that money out, I got to pay taxes on that safe growth. So if I average 3% and I pay taxes on it, I might keep 1% in my pocket, which I'm losing money because inflation grows at least at 3%, right? So that's what you do on the pre-tax side. And let's talk about the after-tax side, because as Scott said, a lot of people aren't too keen on these after-tax vehicles. So if I don't put safety in my 401k, where do I get safety from? We're not saying that you shouldn't put safety, because remember, we talked about vertical diversification. It's important to have at least some money safe. But for safety, we want to look at the after-tax side, because here we can put our money in tools that can give us a tax-free income when we go to pull that money out. So here we're looking at muni bonds is one. So we want to go ahead and start investing in muni bonds. Muni bonds can give you a tax-free income, both federal and state, depending upon the state that you buy your muni bonds in. There's cash value life insurance, like whole life, universal life, variable universal life, all these different type of cash value life insurance policies. Those are money that I can put. And then we have Roth IRAs. Roth IRAs will put safe vehicles in if you're not healthy enough to qualify for cash value life insurance. So these safe investments, you can expect to get anywhere from 3 to 5% return on your money every single year. If that's after-tax growth, that's about a 7 to 8% taxable equivalent, meaning that if you get 8% in your 401k, you might net 5% after you pay taxes. So we're still getting a decent growth. And then we get to pull all that money out completely tax-free, right? So there's only 3 vehicles that we can pull our money out tax-free: muni bonds, life insurance, and Roth IRAs. Doesn't mean we shouldn't go aggressive. On the after-tax side, if you can, if you have life insurance, put equities in your Roth IRA. Keep stocks. It's still an IRA. You still can't touch it until you're 59 and a half. Put your money in the Roth IRA. Employee stock purchasing plans of all types, ESPPs, ESOPs, all these things are great vehicles for you to start gaining some after-tax wealth. The stock market, mutual funds, even things like Acorns on your phone, Robinhood on your phone. You know, these are all after-tax places that you can put money. Real estate, investment properties, starting a business, precious metals. The gentleman brought it up earlier, gold, silver, all these things are after-tax vehicles that are going to get taxed differently. Capital gains tax, different taxes like that, where I'm not paying an income tax. So my aggressive money, I want to go ahead and put in one of these vehicles. So last part, and we'll open it up for questions. What do I do with my money, right? If I'm 50-50, let's say I'm a 50-year-old, and 50% of what I want to put away wants to be aggressive, 50% of what I want to put away has to be safe. If the market is going good, you're going to notice that all your stocks are starting to really kick ass. And now all of a sudden, instead of being 50-50, you're now 60-40. So what happens, we need to sell off some of your stocks. We need to sell high and bring more money down. It's called automatic rebalancing or asset rebalancing. Same thing during a down market. During a down market, stocks are losing. Our portfolio is going to go from 50-50 to 40-60. So now we need to take more cash, buy low, buy more stocks. Sell high, buy low, sell high. That's how we end up accumulating wealth. So when it comes to whatever amount of money you want to put away, a lot of people choose to go 50-50. Half of what I put goes to the pre-tax side, half of what I put goes to the after-tax side. If you say, what is the income I want to live on in retirement? And that answer is less than about $100,000 a year, 50-50 is perfectly fine for you. For most people, if you want to live on 150 or higher, I would suggest putting most of your savings on the after-tax side. Me personally, I'm like 0-100. The only thing that goes to my pre-tax side is my 401k match from my company. But for a lot of people, 50-50 makes sense. So if I'm 50-50 both horizontally and vertically, on the pre-tax side, if I'm putting away $10,000 a year, 5,000 of it is going to go into my 401k. The other 5,000 I'm going to use to buy muni bonds, buy cash value life insurance or something like that. And that way I'm 50-50 both horizontally and vertically. If I'm a 25-year-old and I want to be 75-25, all 50% once again goes to the pre-tax side. I take 2,500, 25%, put it into a Roth IRA. The other 2,500, use it to buy my life insurance, muni bonds, or whatever else I got to do. And then overall, I'm 75-25. So that's how you determine where my money should go. If I'm putting away 10%, if I'm putting away 20%, do your math, talk to a professional, and we can help you decide this is how much you should contribute to your 401k. This is how much you should use to buy gold. This is how much you should use to buy these other vehicles. All right, and that's it. So we're going to go ahead and open it up for some questions at this point.
They can all take themselves off mute, Henry.
All right.
Don't be shy, y'all. Henry's gonna be like, your group is quiet.
Oh no! If nobody wants to take
unexpected from him knowing you.
I was gonna say if nobody wants to take the floor, then I can jump in really quick. Hi Henry, thank you very much.
What's up, Andre?
Taking the time out. So let's say you have a person in a situation where they know absolutely nothing. I know Scott mentioned earlier that most of us understand certain levels, but let's say there's somebody in a situation who doesn't. How would they go about just getting like the basic lowest level understanding, like to what a Roth IRA is, or just like any other different things? Because I'm still trying to figure out my benefits package right now. So
yeah, that's a great question. You know, there's a lot of advisors that are working virtually, you know, and a lot of what we do is free. You know, about 25% of the stuff that I do is free. It's just purely education. You know, I teach a course for Cal Berkeley student athletes, and these are 18-year-olds, 19-year-olds that have the exact same questions like, what the hell is a Roth IRA, right? So you want to meet with someone that you can get along with, somebody that is going to take their time and help educate you on these things. Google can help as well, but it's good to be able to sit down with someone and ask those questions. You have myself, you have a lot of other advisors out there that can sit down with you for an hour or multiple hours and just answer those questions. I also say it helps to start doing things like putting Acorns on your phone or putting Robinhood on your phone or doing these things, because you're gonna get curious and you're gonna buy a stock. And then all of a sudden you're gonna pay attention to that little stock ticker that's on everyone's iPhone. And then you might start listening to Bloomberg every now and then, or then you might pick up the Wall Street Journal, and then you might just hear all these things where it's all just gonna start making sense. I always tell people every single thing that we do up to this point, whether it's walking, talking, eating, at some point you had no idea how to do it, right? So if you're gonna take your time to learn something, it's gonna be very beneficial to take your time to learn how to use money. And as African Americans, I can tell you this, you know, my company's been around for 175 years. The first Black financial advisor was hired only 63 years ago, 65 years ago. So there was a time in America to where, you know, we weren't allowed to do these things. We were only allowed to buy $15,000 worth of life insurance. You know, we weren't taught how to accumulate wealth. And even today, I represent 5% of all financial advisors in America are Black. And a lot of them aren't coming to our community. So when our parents and grandparents aren't teaching us how to turn our income into assets, and we're like, what the hell is an asset? It's because they weren't taught. But, you know, like Maya Angelou said, do the best you can until you know better. And once you know better, do better. So, bro, you know better now, so you got to do better.
Hey, Henry, do you see that part of the challenge is that, like, for African Americans getting into being a financial advisor or anything else, they don't see enough of themselves in that role, so they may not grow up with that aspiration, right? Where, you know, like maybe they have other gifts, but they don't see enough of it. So then you only end up with 5%, plus you end up with all of the other institutional crap that comes along with it.
Yeah, definitely. I think that's a big part. I mean, for the first 3 years of my career, I was the only Black agent in my office. And it gets very lonely at times. You know, I was not growing up saying I wish I was a financial advisor. First of all, there were no financial advisors coming to my house because my parents didn't have a financial advisor. There weren't any financial advisors in my neighborhood. I grew up in Vallejo, California, in the Bay Area. So it's not like I was looking like, oh my God, I want to be a financial advisor. You know, the people that I saw successful and on TV and stuff, they weren't talking about money, right? So that type of stuff just wasn't present. So I think that's definitely part of it. And I think that for a lot of us, when you come into this industry, you know, growing your client base typically starts with the people that you know. And, you know, for myself, I grew up in a very poor neighborhood. So a lot of the people that I knew were poor. So I did get a lot of clients, you know, I did get a lot of solutions that I was able to place, but the amount of money that they spent wasn't paying big commissions, right? So it's a struggle to get started. It's a struggle to get going. And then there's also there's a lack of trust in the Black community when it comes to these organizations, just due to the history of these organizations.
Well, when you talk
that's
about like,
my opinion.
Redlining and stuff like that of districts and things like that for home ownership, and we're not going to give you insurance, or we're going to increase the rates that you're going to have to pay on loans just because of where you're choosing to buy, right?
Yeah. I mean, the way that I was targeted growing up was to spend money. You know, I was taught to go and earn a living and spend it, buy things. I wasn't taught
Henry,
income to assets. Yes.
You want to give them a real life example of that situation?
Of me spending money?
Yeah.
What real life example? Which one? You want to talk about?
I'm talking about the Denali. I'm thinking about the Denali, dude.
Man,
this
is what, like 2004 or something like that?
Yeah.
We were making like, I think this is the first, I was probably 24 years old. We were making like maybe $20,000, $30,000 a month at the startup company that we were at. We were crushing it. And I didn't know what to do with this money. I wasn't spending it on buying stocks and assets. I remember one day I came home with a Denali. I just paid for a Denali, put 24-inch rims on it. My wife at the time was like, bro, you just can't come home with a freaking Denali. Are you serious? Like, I was blowing money. Like, we would just go out. Like, when we went to concerts, it was like the best tickets. It was Louis Vuitton this, Louis Vuitton that. It was just all show, you know, and I ended up getting divorced. You know, she got the house, you know, and then you learn your lessons the hard way. But I got stories for days of just not saving, not educating myself on these tools that are out there.
Well, I saw something, I can't remember, it was over the past year, maybe 2 years, something like that, where it was either an NFL or an NBA player, and he was like, we were never taught this. And yeah, they try to talk to you when you go through orientation coming into the league, and he had a big contract and everything else, but he goes, this wasn't my experience, right? Like, it was like, you didn't know what was going to happen to your money. So when you got it, you got rid of it. in a lot of cases.
Yeah, and that's that scarcity mindset, you know, and when you don't think that you have a long life expectancy, or you're not used to seeing people have long money, you have this feeling of, if I do come up with some money, I need to hoard it to myself. I need to spend it while I have it. And that's kind of the mindset that you grow up with. I never knew anyone that got an inheritance. Anyone that's Black on the line, please raise your hand if you know anyone that's got an inheritance over $50,000, over $10,000. You know, and the wealth gap today between white America and Black America is like, white America is like 16 times